Dan, do you think that the rhetoric is hardening, or is this rather just statements that both sides are putting out while they consider these negotiations behind the scenes?
I would suspect that the Americans are prepared to end the war, gradually unfreeze assets, and provide some sanction relief to the Iranians in exchange for capitulation on a nuclear issue. And many people will tell you that this is a terrible mistake because it will give the regime more runway, more life, oxygen, potentially tens of billions of dollars, and maybe by some estimates over 100 billion, and enable them to continue to oppress their own people, and most devastatingly, to continue to fund proxy militias around the region. And the missing link in the reports I see is just that the Americans do not seem to be insisting on an end to the funding and guiding and training and running, basically, of proxy militias around the region, from Iraq, from the Iraqi Shiite militias to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, to Hamas. And this is major. But I think it's probably inevitable because Trump wants to end the war, and he's looking for any plausible way. And then the question is, do the Iranians take yes for an answer? And do they give him that off-ramp? And it looks like the hubris on the Iranian side, because of their success in freaking out the world with the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, may be so great that they're going to miss this opportunity. And I kind of hope they do, because I think the deal I just described is a bad deal for the West. And I think there's an argument for maintaining the blockade, no matter what the cost, for the global economy, until the Iranian regime is throttled and the Iranian people are freed.
I want to come back to you, Professor Johnston. Dan raised a very important point there, that the United States doesn't seem to be pushing for a disarmament, or at least loss of support by Iran to those proxies, Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah. Why do you think that might be?
Well, first, let me say I think Dan is spot on with his observations about this. So having settled that, Donald doesn't think in a sophisticated way about the world. Viewers should know that I've known Donald for almost 40 years. I've spent hundreds of hours with him. I have a massive collection of Trump documents. And he's not a great negotiator, as he claims and people believe. He has no knowledge of the history of the region. Donald couldn't, if you ask Donald, what's the significance of the split between Sunni and Shia 1,400 years ago, he'd start talking about the drapes in the White House, because he wouldn't know what you're talking about.
What else do you see being perhaps a long-term ramification that we might see coming out of the next couple of months or years, if indeed there is some sort of resolution had via either negotiations, as it might happen at this stage, or perhaps a military win by either side?
Well, there are a number of dimensions here. One is that economists will tell you that even what happened to date will have long-term repercussions on the global economy, largely because the risk price has been reassessed. But basically, the main issue is, if Iran is allowed to get away with this blackmail, then they will themselves return to this tactic the next time they feel threatened. And Iran will view this as an insurance policy for the regime. Now, we're talking about a not small country of almost 100 million people that has succeeded in creating tremendous disruption across the Middle East, has helped Russia extend its ability to wage war in Ukraine, that is a not small player. And the major repercussion is that they're going to use the Strait of Hormuz as a lever of blackmail against the rest of the world. And the rest of it is just what Professor Johnson said. that there will be other instances of choke points around the world that will copycat the success that Iran has had. The only way, the only way to prevent this entire narrative from happening is for the regime to be fundamentally repelled in its strategy and brought down. And this is brutal, and it will be incredibly costly, and it's difficult and rare in history because, generally speaking, even horrible regimes see out their term until their people rebel. But this may have to be the exception, and I don't say that lightly. We're in a very, very difficult position, and the fact that the U.S. is led by a character like Trump at this juncture is obviously a huge tragedy. And I assume Professor Johnson will mock me for even saying this, but for even contemplating that it could be true. But for Iran to understand that they're dealing with a global consensus would require Trump to go to the Europeans and to apologize for everything he's done, for the insane belittling of them for a year and a half, for the threats to invade Denmark, to seize Greenland, for the stupidity of the December national security strategy that mocked Europe and that walked away from democracy promotion. All of this he's going to have to turn tail on in order to get the Europeans on side, which is necessary to face Iran.
David, Dan, Ali Reza, thank you very much for joining us for this excellent discussion.